Okay, I am starting to. Hello. So today we're going to be talking about the number three. With the number three, this is the very community energy, very joyful, but also serious because it's like, okay, guys, like we've got our business to run, but it's also like, oh, community. So the three number is really the organizer. I wanted to call, I think, one the organizer, but it's really the three. Three really knows how to get organized, and before anyone really even asks it to get organized, it's organizing. Because three is when things start to come together and you start to realize, wait a minute, this isn't working, this is a mess, you forgot about this, what's happening over here? Let me see that again. Can I just check this? I don't know about that. Three starts to say, hold on a minute. Let's make sure that what we're doing it right. And if we need to slow down and take our time, let's do that. Because three is also a bit of a languishing energy. It's like, there's no need to rush. We're right at the beginning. So let's go ahead and learn this. And let's go ahead and focus on this and make sure that this is great and this is correct. And let's go ahead and heal this. Because three is now the second generation after the first generation after nothingness. So it's loaded because I want to consider one the first generation, but it's also its own existence. It's complicated. So two, I would more so consider the first generation. Then I would consider three the second generation. So three is the number that really notices things. Three is very observant. Three looks around and it's like, I'm really proud of my family for what they've been able to do. I'm really proud of the changes that they've made and how much, I'm really proud of the growth, but there are some changes that could be made. There are some things that we could do a little bit differently. There are some things to consider. Let's wait for a second. Let's pause and think more deeply about this. Let's take our time. Let's not rush because we want to do things in a good way, because three is the first number to receive the fallout of generations of existence at this point. Three is really, really inheriting in the way that two was inheriting, but two was inheriting like life and existence and the basics, Three starts to inherit what happens when things get together and really just start to build, and maybe just for the sake of building and discovery. So three begins to tap into an energy or an understanding of an energy that is a little bit more, that is more complex because there are more things to be considered beyond just survival. So instead of everything just being acceptable because it was like we were just trying to get through and create something and get a legacy, now three is like, okay, well, is this the legacy we want? This is the mother who, instead of always having to have thought about for generations just feeding her children and keeping them warm and safe and keeping them alive, now how do we want to keep them alive? What other things? Three was probably the first number to begin to ask questions about mental health. Was the first to begin to say, well, yes, we've got the body. Is our body okay? Okay, cool. Are we able to communicate basic things? Okay, cool. But like, what else needs to be communicated that maybe is harder to speak about? Three develops maybe the more complex language. At three, you're starting to speak more complex sentences. It's not perfect, but you're starting to get a sense of structure and being able to express yourself in a way that is a little bit more profound. And that creates a lot more agency, a lot more understanding, and a lot more connection. Diving deeper and asking the questions that complicate life, as the three does, which is the organizer, getting things together and being the operations of things, is how we create a better life. It's how we create a better world. And I think that three asks us to do that. Three asks how we can work together to serve each other, service each other in a way that really creates momentum for positive change, positive movement forward. Three asks, what are we moving towards? What are we growing? What are we creating? And why has this happened before? I'm not sure how much three is always thinking about the far, far, far ahead future, I do think that three has an understanding of the future in a very important way, but I think three is a big picture thinker. So three is big picture energy in the sense that you're like, okay, well, look, these issues, if we continue on this way, this isn't the life that I want for my child. But three is only working from what they know, right? So you're not big picture thinking like, let's create this is not blah, 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 blah. Three is like, based off of what we've experienced, based off of what we've learned, I can see this kind of future ahead. I've decided I don't need to have that kind of future. I've already experienced that, and I've actually got a different idea of how things can go, a better idea based off of what I know. I want to explore that. Three is a different idea, a different way of thinking, a different perspective, based off of what your parents have done. This is going against tradition. This is, being like, well, you know what? I'm reflecting on what I've seen, and I've decided I want to raise my kids a different way. It's the gap in between. It's when you put the future, it's when you put all of the knowledge of your ancestors together and you're like, this is amazing, what's been done. I'm going to take the good stuff. I'm going to learn from what I've experienced, recognizing that I don't need to accept everything that I experienced in my childhood as the way to do it. And I'm going to choose to do something a little bit differently. Three says we actually can take time to heal. Three says, you know what? I know that it's really cool when we build all together and we're all one little unit and we're all like a little, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Like, whoa, hi. But then three's like, well, wait a minute. How else can we get connected to the world around us? How can we get connected to the environment around us? There's something we need to acknowledge, to help us get connected in a way that is more fruitful, more balanced. Three can really help speak to nature, acknowledging nature as a teacher. Three says, I don't have all the authority, but I have enough to understand that I'm not the only one with all the answers here. Let me speak to my relationship, not just as the number three, but my relationship to the universe. What created me? What is my energy? What is my experience? This is the great grandchild, right? So for some threes, that great grandchild doesn't know their great grandparent anymore. They don't know the number zero. They don't know that energy. But they know their grandparent, who was the first child of nothing. So they might go to the sources. Three might be someone who is very, who really has an appreciation for wisdom, for ancient intelligence, who really does like to try and keep track of all the information. I would imagine that three is someone who would be a very good guard for the Akashic records. Someone who really appreciates that. It's a librarian energy who really appreciates knowledge being protected. It's why I was thinking about the pyramids. I think that three understands that there are codes in everything, that there is something to be deciphered in everything, and that we don't have just all the information on our own. We can really learn from things. Three is like, let's use our tools. Let's use the tools we have. Let's be resourceful. Let's get resourceful. And in getting resourceful, we get organized. Let's see what we've got, and if what we don't have, let's see how we can have that. Let's see how we can put those things together. Three is about taking a minute to really like take account, to really take stock and be like, wow, I've got this, and I've got this. Okay. What does that mean? What can I do with this? Rather than being like, I've got this, and I've got this. How can I get that? It's more so, I've got this. What is this? What can this amount to? What can this create? What do I do with this? What do I want to do with this? What are the value of these things? What does this mean versus this versus this? What are their relationships to each other? Three is about getting interconnected. Rather than going outside, which is what two is all about. Two is about expansiveness. How can we grow based off of this? Three is like, okay, pause on the expansive. What's going on in here? What's going on within this unit? Three is the number that helps prompt discussions about like intersectionality, about interdisciplinary work. 3, interconnected, intercommunity problems. That's where we start to see those discussions happening. Because when you think about it, 3 is a family unit. 4 is also a family unit, but 3 is a major family unit. And in the number 3, we really begin to see questions about the dynamics, because 3, being the observer, also gets to experience the energies outside of themselves, which is also why they're good at acknowledging like nature and other teachers. But even in the sense of acknowledging your own parents as the child, and 3, you get to see the existence or the presence, the expression of other energies that are like you, and learn from them, and also recognize your differences. 3 is the first number to be like, wait a minute, we are different from each other. You are you, and you came together and you created me, and I'm still different from the both of you. I'm not just a combination of you. I'm something different entirely. Why is that? What is that? What's going on here? 3 starts to ask lots of questions. 3 can be really synonymous with the youngest, which is like there's this quote that my sister showed me: the youngest child in a family is the eldest ancestor. And it's kind of that energy, because once the ancestors are out of vision, they're probably here with you. So it's this energy of like, because 3 might not know their great-grandparent, that great-grandparent is probably deep in 3, right? They carry that energy because the 3 carries the energy of the unknown, of the unseen, because there are now legacies they can't see. So you're literally tapped into nothingness through that lack of vision. That's how you know that you are connected, that you are really deeply embedded in your ancestry at this point. It's very powerful, and it's so strange and secretive. And that's where all this curious nature comes from, because it's also like the ancestors getting to look at what's been created from their original creations and be like, oh, okay, so this is how things have gone. Well, how do we want things to go? So there's a lot happening spiritually, mentally, as well as on this physical plane. So that's why spirit, the number 3, starts to, ask those questions about mental health, spiritual health, bring in all of these different aspects beyond just this world. 3 is a very cool number. I like the number 3. Information, knowledge is power, and protecting information. Information is sacred. The idea of don't burn books, like do not burn books. I feel like that was the number 3. That was really a part of that. Might not have done that entirely. Like that could have definitely been mixed with the number 9, and other numbers. But that's definitely important. The idea of gathering and collecting. 3 can be a bit of a hoarder, but to me, it's not really giving hoarder as much as it is just giving like, I'm protective of what I have, I'm grateful of what I have, and I recognize the value. And so I'm going to appreciate these things, and I'm going to try and understand them. So I feel like 3 also attracts attention, though. 3 attracts attention. It can attract critique, because sometimes people can feel like you're over your head. In number 3, it's kind of like you need help. 3 is where you can also have restrictions imposed upon you, thinking about what happens when you turn 13, especially to young girls. Even to young boys. I mean, I'm not trying to be very gendered, but just thinking about that number and what it means in terms of like puberty and all the associations that start to happen. Think about the cultural things around 13, how it can be a bad number to some people. The movie 13, Friday the 13th, all these things around 13. It's where we start to see a switch and change, a real evolution, because like I said, we've gone away from nothingness. Nothingness is in the unknown. So now there's a whole new existence coming out, simply because we don't have nothingness in our vision anymore. That transformation energy is literally the embodiment of nothingness coming back into existence. So 13 also speaks to rebirth energy. It's death energy, so which is why death is the 13 in the tarot, which includes the number 3 and also includes the number 1. They're the same energy. Just the same way that 1 has a really close energy to nothingness because it's literally its child. And I keep saying nothingness as 0. 0 is nothingness, that's what I mean. 3 also has the same energy as 1 because 3 is deeply connected to nothingness through its lack of connection to nothingness, like through its distance. That distance is actually nothingness being really embedded. So it's interesting. It's super strange. This is an energy that you could really, really dive deep into because it's so thick. It's so thick in nothing. That there are so many mysteries to be unlocked when you get to the point of 3. But thinking about like a family of 3, very different from a family of 4. Think about the critiques that the parents probably have received from choosing to only have 1 child when it comes to like a family of 3. But also think about that child and the type of traits that they tend to have. Think about only children and the kind of energies that they tend to have, usually like within a 2-parent household. It's a little bit different if it's like a single parent and an only child. That's a different relationship. But thinking about an only child with 2 parents, thinking about like a friendship of 3, the 3 musketeers, but also third wheeling. Thinking about like a sibling group of 3, the eldest, the youngest, the eldest, the middle, and the youngest. We've got these like firm placements, which is where that organizer energy comes in with 3. You do this, you do this, you do this. You've got these firm positions, these roles, these understandings, true understandings of everybody's place. 3 begins to really be like, 3 is when you really start to count. Also, you're like 1, 2, 3, and you start to ask questions about whatever result you get from that when you're counting those 3s. It triggers a lot. It triggers lots of feelings, awakenings, questions, whatever. 3 triggers things. Even thinking about 3 being in the energy of Pisces and also to some the energies of Aquarius, depending on where you lie in the zodiac. But also, would it also be in the energy of Aries, depending on where you lie in the zodiac? But thinking about those 3 energies, like Aquarius is the weirdo, but also super connected to the outer space, which could be the universe, which could be nothingness, could be perceived as anything, but then Pisces is really connected to nothingness, really connected to, being the eldest, but also being super young and not naive, but very like just, I don't know, very much so in the subconscious, which for some reason for me just gives me like a young energy, even though it's like supposed to be the oldest of the zodiac. And then you have Aries, which is the youngest, and that's fire and that's brilliant. And lots of ideas and go. But I don't feel like 3 really embodies Aries energy so much, I wouldn't say. But anyways, so that's 3 in a snapshot from my opinion. I would love to know your opinion, though. So what do you think about the spiritual significance of the number 3? What do you think about the things that I mentioned today? I'm sorry if I spoke really, really fast. I feel like 3 is like also like, you're getting lots of information out. There's like so much going on and you're just like, whoa. And it's exciting. It's exciting. Like think about the first kid and like you're just like overwhelmed because you're like, oh my God. But then once you get 2, then you're like, oh, I can handle this, So it's like 3 is also like the trial runs when you start to, and you have to be so vulnerable with 3 because you're doing everything so publicly, so openly, second descendant, and the one that doesn't know nothingness, there's also a big weight on them because it's like, do you know your history? Do you know your ancestors? Do you know the sacrifices that have been made? You want to change this, but do you know that this started back then? Do you have an appreciation for, all these lots and lots of pressure? Same way it can be on the youngest child, but similar to how it can be on, same way it can be on the youngest child. Yes, so let me know what you think about the number 3, and I'm gonna move on. Okay, bye.